So I attended my home church this morning, and the speaker there, began by just kind of acknowledging the really incredibly tough times that we're living in now, in which we quite certainly have ahead. And amid that, she invited us to think about like what really roots us at this moment, and also in spite of those times. So like beyond our attachment to just getting like a particular policy proposal passed, or seeing like the success or the failure of a particular political party, like what is it that long term keeps us in this work and really sustains us. So then considering, for example, like this image of a tree planted by water, I like imagining those roots stretching down and asking like, well, what are they grabbing onto down there? Like what is solid and what's going to be able to keep us upright? So I've done environmental justice work in several forums in Louisiana, first in direct community organizing, and now mostly through a classroom space. And I can tell you what roots so many people here in Louisiana is a very deep sense of home, and one which in many cases goes back generations. And in almost every case, one that has been very hard won. So for example, you have people who are living along the petrochemical corridor, along the Mississippi River. Their ancestors were set free from enslavement along that river when it was plantations, and they lived there as free people for the first time. Or you have people who are descended from the Choctaw and the Homa, who during the Trail of Tears, they fled south to the wetlands and to the swamps in order to preserve their lives and preserve their freedom. And you have people who came to New Orleans and they built up our traditions during Mardi Gras, so many of those being political statements in themselves, and who have just rebuilt their home like time and time again after we get hurricane after hurricane after hurricane. So again, the sense of home is really deep. It's intergenerational. It is hard won. And of course, it is constantly under attack. So these freedmen towns along the river have been pushed out by petrochemical industry. They make the land unlivable. They make the air unbreathable. In the south, in the swamps, oil and gas companies are digging canals through the wetlands, which has accelerated the loss of our wetlands. And in turn, that invites flooding into these indigenous towns, some of which have been flooded out essentially into non-existence. And then for all of us here in Louisiana, we have climate change, and these hurricanes just keep coming and coming. And Shelly, I'm really glad you mentioned insurance, because as private flood insurance markets fail in Louisiana, which they're definitely doing, we're not really doing anything on a social level to make sure that people can get their homes back and be able to rebuild. So the attacks are constant. And at every turn, people are fighting like hell. They're suing the government, suing oil and gas companies, investigating, calling out politicians who benefit from some of these corporate interests. And I think we're doing it because our ancestors fought really hard for their place in the world and in this state. And we're just continuing the work that they do because we have no choice. Every generation fights the same fight. I think that's just the worth of, or the work of humanity. If we want to live, we have to protect our own lives, and as Kate, the previous speaker, says, like, we need our homes, right? We need our homes. So we really have no choice but to fight for them. So again, in thinking of like roots that sustain us, I think the roots are that deep sense of home, that deep sense of place, and a sense of continuing that work that's been done by our ancestors. And so then next you have to ask yourself, well, what waters those roots? And what nurtures them, what encourages them to grow? And I think that's something we could all spend some time, contemplating for ourselves. But also, I can skip to the end for you and just say, like, y'all, it's community. Like, it's always community. It's 100% community. Community is what waters the roots. Community lets us learn from each other. It lets us take strength from each other. It's also something that can grow without money, and it can be cultivated regardless of who holds political power. And it should be cultivated, right, regardless of who holds political power. And it just makes us happy. And all of these worthy things that we're fighting for, there's no sense in fighting for any of them if it doesn't allow us a few minutes of happiness and peace in this world. So I think that's really the thought I'll leave you with, is that if you feel like you are weak or you are wilting, just ask yourself, like, have I been watering my roots? And what have I been watering them with? And are you taking strength from community? So for me, community always lifts me up in certain times. Like right now, it's pretty much the only thing that lifts me up. Um, I'm really grateful to have found this community. I think you all will sustain me at least for another week. And hopefully we can keep building from each other. And thank you so much. Ah.